We're off to a good start. We're already 3 minutes late to our first kickoff meeting, so we'll try to rectify that in the future. But I do want to thank everybody for coming out. This is our first official kickoff meeting for the Recovery Committee. So thank you for coming out and listening. We will have a public comment portion towards the end of our agenda, but what I first want to do is go around the table and allow people that have already been selected for our initial steering committee to introduce themselves briefly.
I'm Amy Lathan, El Paso County Commissioner for District 2.
Senator Kent Lambert, Senate District 9.
I'm Leif Garrison. I'm a 23-year resident of Black Forest. I'm also the chairman of the Black Forest Community Foundation.
I'm Calvin Dean, a representative of Coca-Cola Refreshments.
Annie Oatman-Gardner, work for U.S. Senator Michael Bennett.
Dan Nordberg, State Representative, House District 14.
Sean Perkins, former with U.S. Northcom.
Eddie Bracken, I'm the president of Black Forest Community Club, board chairman of the Black Forest Fire District, and a few other things.
Donna Arkowski, 37-year resident of Black Forest, serve on several committees in Black Forest.
Hi, I'm Dr. Judy Von Allfeld. I own the Black Forest News. My training is in ecology. I'm a 43-year resident of Black Forest, and I've worked on the Black Forest Preservation Plan, both versions, since the 1970s.
Sally Clark, El Paso County Commissioner. We're done?
Neil Shearer, District Director for Congressman Doug Lamborn.
Peggy Littleton, El Paso County Commissioner, District 5.
And I'm Darryl Glenn, El Paso County District 1 Commissioner. So again, thank everybody for coming out. And really, I want to make sure that we, if there are questions that come up, we address those at the end. But this is really the, for lack of a better way of explaining it, the steering committee that's going to help oversee the efforts as far as the county's participation in the long-range effort of the recovery, the restoration, and rebuilding of the Black Forest burn area. All of our committee meetings, whether they're at this level or different subcommittees, which we'll discuss later, they are all going to be open meetings, publicly noticed, so people can participate. We encourage people to try to attend as many meetings as they want. And we want to make sure that we comply with our notice requirements so that people are well aware of it. We want to be very open and transparent throughout this process. If there are meetings, for example, unfortunately we went through last year with Waldo Canyon, and there are survivor groups that are out there. If there are meetings like that, those are going to be private meetings. They are not going to be county-sponsored meetings. There might be faith-based organizations that want to participate in those, so those are good sessions for people that they want to participate in, but they will not be county-sanctioned events, so we want to make sure that that's very clear. Some of the rules that we're going to go through are all of our committees and subcommittees shall be required to allow public input. That is very important. This is your recovery effort, so we want to make sure you have an opportunity to have a voice in the process. How this body is going to work is once we break down into subcommittees, the subcommittee chair is going to be responsible for essentially staying within the parameters of that committee's description. There are people, people in the community, if they want to participate on that particular subcommittee, they can notify that respective subcommittee chairperson. It's really going to be the discretion of that particular individual. If there are issues that come up as far as policy discussions within that subcommittees, those policy discussions will be elevated to this particular committee. This committee is charged with making those particular decisions. If a decision requires essentially a board-level discussion where the El Paso County Commissioners have to issue policy guidance with regard to, let's say, suspending building regulations or whatever like that, that issue will come forward in this committee and it will be elevated to the Board of County Commissioners. The Board of County Commissioners will publicly notice that particular item for discussion and make a decision. And once that decision is made, it will then be passed down to this board and then passed back to the subcommittee. So I want to make sure people are aware of the process that we're going to try to follow. The subcommittee chairs are going to be responsible for reporting back to this overall body and providing just you know, an update of what's happening within their particular area of responsibility. The chair and the co-chair, we may periodically, based on what we're hearing out in the community, create another subcommittee, and we will let everybody know about that. So first I want to start off with a description of the subcommittees that we've already established. And our first one is Land Development Code and Code Enforcement. And Commissioner Dennis Heisey is going to chair that particular subcommittee, and he's up there waving in the back. And yesterday we had a work session because our Development Services Department brought forward some issues that we're going to have to give some direction on. We are scheduled to take those up formally on Tuesday during our meeting, so we will be able to provide some direction for Commissioner Heisey and his subcommittee as we're working these particular issues of land development code and code enforcement issues. He's also going to oversee vendor referral. When we put down vendor referral, what that means is we are not in the business of picking and choosing. There will be a process that's set up in place just to make sure that people are aware of different vendors, but we will not be issuing any recommendations as a county of which vendors to use. The second subcommittee is a cleanup and a recovery process committee, and Commissioner Amy Latham is going to chair that. And in fact, I'm going to let her briefly talk about that because that is probably our first priority, and there is going to be a meeting on that on Friday. So I'm going to turn the mic over to her briefly.
Thank you. I do want to let you know that we, as Commissioner Glenn just stated, this is a priority that we believe, and our committee here can discuss some more of this regarding this priority. But we are going to have a meeting right here in this facility Friday evening at 6:30, beginning at 6:30. We expect that to be 2 hours. We may run a little long. And what we are going to focus on very specifically is debris removal, permitting, tree mitigation, and then wells and septic. What we are seeing is that, of course, this is a very different kind of recovery than we saw in last year's fire because of the fact that we have wells and septic, that we don't have centralized water. We have a very different dynamic. We have a very different dynamic as it relates to the forest itself and the trees. These are some very specific issues that have arisen that we know need to be dealt with quickly, and so we will have experts here to present to you some brief presentations about where things stand and answer any questions that come up on those particular issues. So again, it's going to be permitting. We'll have regional building here and some others, debris removal, tree mitigation, and then very important information as it relates to your wells and your septic. So that's this Friday evening at 6:30. And so members of the committee, if you can be here, that would be great. And we'll have all that information going out today as we're finalizing the folks, the experts who will be here to address those issues.
Thank you. And Commissioner Heisey, since I skipped over you, I'm sorry. Did you have anything that you wanted to talk about with your committee? Not to put you on the spot.
Thanks. We'll be getting together soon. But a couple of things. One is the commissioners had already heard several things about, your land development code. It is going to make it difficult for me. Can you work on that? And as Darryl said, we did that yesterday. That we'll present that and make it formal on Tuesday. However, our committee will be focusing on how to make life easier for the rebuilding process. I think Dr. Von Alfeld said it best yesterday when we were debating do we or do we not. She said if you're going to err on the side of generosity. So if there are more suggestions that need to come forth and need to go to the commissioners, we change things in one meeting, we can change more things in one meeting after it goes through the process and back up to the commissioners. So I just wanted to assure everyone that just because we held one meeting and made changes doesn't mean we're done. We're certainly want to be sensitive to all the residents out there.
And thank you. We have had Representative Amy Stevens just join us, and she's been a very valuable player behind the scenes. Thank you very much. We're just going over a committee and subcommittee discussion right now. The third committee that subcommittee we're having is a community support, and that is going to be headed up by Commissioner Sally Clark, and I'll give her a few minutes to talk about that.
Thank you. Mainly, I wanted to just say that I think we've learned a lot of lessons since Waldo Canyon, and being that that's in my commissioner district, I have a lot of folks who want to help out from the Waldo Canyon, specifically from the Mountain Shadows area, who want to offer any support services that they can to provide any lessons learned and to interface with any of you that have had complete losses, partial losses, or just need some support. So I just want to let you know that I'll be working with our Department of Human Services and with the state of Colorado that's been very generous. Aspen Point, if you need somebody to talk to, we want to do that in a very professional and personal way. If you need some help, don't be afraid to ask, and feel free to come to me, and I'll keep all that information confidential. I also will be working and interfacing with the health department and the other agencies that I typically work with, and we'll just try and help in whatever way I can. So don't feel worried about reaching out to me if I can help you with anything. We've still got recovery going on the other side of the interstate, but every resident in this community is important regardless of what district we represent, and I'm happy to help you in any way I can. And you know, if you need even assistance and me to hook you up with some of the folks that have been through this before in maybe a little different way, please let me know, and I'm here for you. Thanks, Darryl. Oh, I'm sorry. Also, we have established a fund, and the fund is actually already there, for the Pikes Peak Community Foundation. There's a lot of folks that are coming forward with all kinds of fundraising activities, and what we're trying to do is centralize that fundraising. Not to say that independent organizations shouldn't be raising their own dollars, but we're trying to route the dollars through Pikes Peak Community Foundation. So ppcf.org is where the main website is. We've got several members on that committee to help determine how those dollars are used. One of them sitting right here, Eddie Bracken, who's one of your residents, to make sure that the dollars go towards services that are ultimately directly impacting you. So we're going to be talking about how those dollars will be used. We haven't raised a lot of money yet. It's a little over $100,000, but we want to figure out the best way to use that to help the residents of Black Forest, not just directly to agencies necessarily that support, but also to figure out how to best get that to the residents to offer you any assistance that you might need. Does that cover it? Thank you.
Another committee that we have is Citizen Preparedness and our Lessons Learned committee, and I'm going to have Commissioner Peggy Littleton address that.
In the Citizens Preparedness and the Lessons Learned, there's a number of components that we're going to be talking about in that. One of them is the continued emphasis on emergency preparedness for those that were fortunate enough to have not lost their homes in the Black Forest Fire, and for those around our community, whether that be in the Cheyenne Mountain area, who have a lot of mitigation and work that they're going to be doing, those who are living up in the west side of town looking at potential flooding in the future. We'll continue to focus on that. Survivor advocacy is another component of this particular committee. If you need to have your concerns heard and you feel like they're not being heard, I'd like you to be sure and email me, Peggy Littleton, at elpasoco.com. That's Peggy Littleton at elpasoco.com, and certainly we'll make sure that those get into the hands of the folks who can assist. Looking at survivor advocacy as well, one of the important things that we know from lessons learned from Waldo Canyon is to ensure that at the very beginning we have information on what did we do right, what would we have done differently, what are the things that we'd encourage you to do, what timing would you do them for insurance purposes. And whether you are working well with your insurance company, or like when you visit a doctor, you want a second opinion, you want to get somebody else to be an advocate for that, give you a different story, give you some different ideas. It's always good, I think, to get a second opinion. And so we're going to try to set up a meeting very soon, hopefully within the next couple of weeks, to, I've already engaged 3 different couples from the Waldo Canyon Fire who would share their stories, lessons learned, good things, things they do differently. And so that meeting will hopefully be occurring within the next 2 weeks. We're going to try to get the state insurance guy down here to talk to you just in a general level on what you might want to do, who you might want to contact, and who they might recommend. And if that doesn't happen in the next couple of weeks, it'll be probably after the 14th of July. But I know that you need to get that information as quickly as possible. Also, if you have stories from the forest, just being kind of the point person and the head of the Disaster Assistance Center, I've already heard a lot of stories. I've heard stories that have broken my heart of hardships that people have gone through and who are still beginning that long, long struggle, that marathon of rebuilding their lives. And so we'd love to memorialize that. We'd love to work with our Public Information Office, with the Pioneer Museum here in town, who have coming out just this week, I think, a fantastic display over at the Pioneer Museum on the Waldo Canyon fire and some of the stories of how that affected people's lives. So I'd like to be the point person for that. And then one of the things that we didn't quite have as an issue in the Waldo Canyon fire, which is animal control. And I know many people were affected in a very different way and impacted because Black Forest has a lot of animals. We have a lot of horses and cows and pigs and sheep and goats and chickens. And how do we do a better job with that in the future? How do we look at possible fostering type of situations for animals that may be displaced for a long period of time? Working with the Humane Society and with the City of Colorado Springs to look at how we have a regional animal control authority potentially, so that we have a little bit better impact and a little bit better planning on what to do with our animals. And so I'll have the opportunity to be the point person for that on this committee too, if you'd like to be involved.
And thank you. Another committee that I'm really excited about is our Legislative Support Committee. You can see we have representatives here from various offices, and I think it's going to be critical for them to help us analyze the process that we've gone through, make any recommendations as far as any improvements with timelines and responses, as well as working with FEMA. And right now I've initially tasked State Senator Kent Lambert. They can all wrestle over who's going to be chair, but I tagged Kent first, so I'll give him an opportunity to state some things.
Thank you, Commissioner Glenn. I see part of our charter here is actually going into 2 phases. We've got some immediate questions we have to address as far as disaster declarations, probably both at the state and federal level, that may trip in different types of funding streams that could come in to help mitigate some of the problems of especially infrastructure protection, as well as more of a long-term plan as to how we get the dead trees and so forth cut down out of that area when that becomes appropriate. So I think there are some overlaps on some of these questions in the long term on forest mitigation, debris removal, and how we might be able to get governmental funding for some of that. But right now, my understanding is that FEMA is actually here this week in extensive discussions with the county. The actual survey of damage has not been completed yet, and I think there's going to be some time, so I'm thinking another week or 2 before all of the decisions are made at the federal level, or at least to submit decision memoranda at the federal level to get that type of support. At the state legislature level, this last session, actually there's some good news there. We've earmarked another $42 million of emergency funding that we didn't have last year. That should be kicking in on the 1st of July, and then there is a new, there was a bill this session to start a new committee. It's a standing joint committee of I think 10 legislators solely focused on wildfire issues. That committee really hasn't been formed yet. I think both the Senate and the House leadership are working on assigning people to those committees now, and as we get lessons learned in the long term for this, I think that's the longer term phase that we need to look at as well. How can we do things better? Is there a way of doing things in firefighting that's quicker, that brings on the ground resources or in the air resources to bear more quickly? and then how do we go about managing that with a division between local, county, state, and federal assets, and how's all that coordinated? So I think in the legislative side, this could go on for quite a while, even outside the boundaries of just the Black Forest fire, because we also have lots of current experience on the Waldo Canyon and Mountain Shadows incidents also. So we're glad to take this up, and thank you for starting that committee.
And our final subcommittee is our Black Forest Foundation. You know, once I took over Commissioner District 1, I'm well aware of there's so many different networks and there's so many groups that have organized structure as far as being able to communicate information out there. So we want to tap into that and give them a formal seat at the table, because again, you know, this whole effort is it's your community. We want to make sure that you have a seat and a voice in the whole process. So I've asked Eddie Bracken to kind of chair that up, but I know they've already started. They've had several of their own meetings, which is great. We want to help them. But what we're really looking at is being able to rely on them to help us identify what those needs and concerns are so that we can work them at this committee level. So I'm going to turn this over to Eddie Bracken.
Thank you, Commissioner Glenn. We've formed a committee. We've met twice, and we're going to meet weekly. There's about 35 or 40 people on it from all the various disciplines. The churches are heavily involved with it. We finally made those connections, and we think that's very important, because we got to be able to communicate with the people that have been affected with this, and they don't have phones, they don't have internet, you know, they're just operating over a cell phone. So we've got to make contact with those people to let them describe to us what they need. You know, we're the stakeholders in this thing, and we need to find out them. And the churches have done a wonderful job in going down that path, you know, and they're working ecumenically together. They have a list of people, and we have a list of people with names on it finally. And Commissioner Glenn, I'd like to get the HOA list. That's one other thing, because, you know, some people are not members of religious communities. But the churches have already outreached to these people, and they have forms that they fill out, and they say, what do you need? You know, I got no insurance, or I need a telephone, or whatever. So we need to make that basic fundamental communications gap at the beginning. With respect to what Senator Lambert said, you know, the Southern Baptist Convention is already on scene. They've already talked to 180 homeowners out there. They are willing to take down trees and trash removal, and no charge to anybody, to the county, to the people that own the place, or whatever. And so we need to exploit them people, and not, I don't mean to exploit them in a derogatory sense, but I mean exploit their capability. They're willing to stay here as long as it takes to do it. And as Sally Clark mentioned, I'm on her committee for the Community Foundation, Pikes Peak Community Foundation. We have a Black Forest Foundation that was basically for the park, and we've segmented that into another subset that will accept donations to try to give them to the people. The biggest concern that we have, and is our understanding, is the 501(c)(3)s, C3s, like Pikes Peak Foundation or the Black Forest Community Foundation, can't give money to an individual. They cannot give money to an individual. A church can. Even though they are 3C, C3, they can give. So we've got to figure out how we can get dollars and cents to individuals at that level. You know, do we pass it through the church or whatever? Because a lot of people don't have insurance. Good, bad, or indifferent, but that's the facts over there. Some are elderly. Some are physically disabled. And we need to reach out to those people and provide them financial assistance in a very disastrous situation. So that's one of the dilemmas that we need to come to grips with, is how do we get money to an individual, you know? Karen Share, we did one on Tri-Lakes thing. I've asked our fire department and Westcott and Falcon, do they have any needs, you know? And they burned up a lot of equipment on that thing, and so, and then the forest, you know, and that's dear to our hearts. And Judy down here on my left is she knows a lot about that stuff, You know, she's got a PhD in that thing. And so when we go in there and restore that forest, we just don't want to go in there and whack those trees down and chop them all up and lay that stuff on the ground. We need to be smart about that and let the forest recover ourselves. And we need to do that correctly. And she's already had meetings with Dave Root and the other people from the Forest Service. So anyway, we're working it hard. I've sent Darryl, Commissioner Glenn, a copy of our needs, and there's about 15 items on there that are county items, and we can use your help on that. And then there's other things, communications and contributions and how we do that. And we'd like to, you know, work together on this thing and work together to not only a short-term solution, but a long-term thing that will provide the health of the forest the way we started out before the fire. Thank you.
And thank you. And you touched on a very critical point in the fact that this is a long-term process. This is a marathon and not a sprint. And what we're worried about is, you know, in the next week or two when, you know, it fades from the headlines and people really, it really sets in as far as when you go back and you look in your property. It's a grieving process of some people. Some people have already started that process. Some people, it's going to take them a while to start that process. So we want to put an infrastructure in place, putting our county resources available, setting up subcommittees so that we can help you get the answers that you need. I just want to recap again with the subcommittee process, and then I'm going to ask if the members here at the steering committee, if they have any questions with regard to the subcommittee, because they're getting this real time. That's how fast we're working here, so they might have some questions. But again, the subcommittee chairs, it is up to them to go out and recruit members that want to participate in that subcommittee. So we want to make sure that they make that known. We will be using our public communication office to help broadcast and notify of the various meetings. We will also be using our Black Forest Communication Network, where we spent so much time putting together that email system. We have over 100 points of contact that we can send that out, and we wanted to make sure that we essentially relay information out there that's critical for people to attend meetings. And we encourage our members here to sit in on any committee meetings that they want. The only thing that we ask is that your particular subcommittee, that you stay focused on your particular issue. We call it stay in your lane. We don't want to duplicate efforts here because we've really put a lot of thought into this process and want to make sure that we have an efficient way of doing that. So with that, if any of the committee chairs here or various members have any questions on the subcommittee, it's your turn.
It's working. So a couple questions. During Waldo, of course, we had Colorado Springs Utilities, and they had their own assets that were, you know, impacted, but they also helped with the recovery of the area. What about that kind of infrastructure up in the Black Forest, and are those, where would, in this rubric, where would the utilities fit as far as points of contact?
Come on down. You might as well stay down here. And introduce yourself, please.
Okay, I'm Jim Reed. I'm the Executive Director of Public Services for El Paso County. I'm also a resident of Black Forest. So I'm happy to be here and have our team together, so thank you for letting me do this. In answer to your question, my department has worked closely with the gas and the electric company, Mountain View Electric, as well as Black Hills Energy and Tri-State. So if there's any questions regarding that, please just direct them to me and we'll go ahead and get you hooked up with the right folks. I do have to say this about those two utility companies, Black Hills and Mountain View Electric. They did a phenomenal job during the fire. I've never seen a utility company work so fast and so hard to get stuff back to you folks. And the amount of work that goes into making that happen is phenomenal. So I think they deserve a big hand if you ever see them. And I don't know if there's any representatives here from there, but thank you very much for what you've done. Sir? Oh, CenturyLink as well. If you've got a problem with that, just let me know and we'll get a hold of CenturyLink for you. Everybody does? Okay. Is it the phone? Really?
I know.
Okay. All right. I will address that.
And those questions I would ask to reserve for our public comment section.
Okay. But that's good to know. Thank you.
I appreciate that. I was in touch actually with CenturyLink yesterday, so if we can get maybe a list of you folks who need assistance, I'm going to pass that on to their regional director, and then we'll see if we can get, I had one email from somebody and they followed up immediately, but if there's a bigger problem, we need to let them know. So we'll get that contact for you.
And I know there might be follow-up questions with that, but I don't want to open it up for that particular question. I want to get through that portion of the agenda, and then we'll open it up and address it that way. And Jim, a follow-up question. Looking at our committee structure, where would that fall under?
First one here, I would like to put that under the cleanup and recovery, as part of the recovery process. And that would be yours, correct?
I already wrote it down.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, just one other question. There was some support with SBA loans and that kind of thing. Where do you want to see that as well? That kind of support. It's federal support, but it's not the declaration. It's money that's already in an agency. So
right. We're definitely going to put
recovery,
that in
citizen
our survivor advocacy subcommittee.
Survivor advocacy?
Yes.
Okay.
So for SBA?
SBA.
Any other committee questions? This is your opportunity because you know, once we go through this, you are empowered for a week to go out and recruit. So I would wait. Let's wait until we address that. Okay. What I want to do now is focus in on the citizen intake process. You know, this is something that we're really focused in on. For example, if there are needs in the community, how do you engage this particular committee, whether it's via a phone call or an email? So I am going to ask Ahmad Karaki and Jim Reed to kind of talk through exactly how people can engage this network.
We'll start out with Mr. Karaki. It's a lot of it's information management, so I'll let Ahmad start, and then we'll kick into the rest of it. So.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Ahmad Karaki. I'm the Support Services Director for El Paso County. Thank you all for being here today. Basically, on the intake process, we have, and there are more folks that are qualified to talk about it in the room because they've been doing it hands-on. We had what we call the DAC, Disaster Assistance Center. We started basically on Garden of the Gods at our facility, and now we moved up to the Classical Academy, and the Disaster Assistance Center at the Classical Academy opened up this morning. The intake is very important because now as we start moving into the recovery phase, we basically are setting up a call center so that folks will be able to call in with specific issues. They will be also able to send an email out. And I won't try to spout that off. We will basically make sure everybody gets it. It's also on the blackforestdisasterrecovery.com website. All of that information is on there. So basically what we wanted to do is to make sure is we organize how folks are coming in based on property, location of property, what type of property, how old the property is it total destruction, partial destruction. We want to make sure that we engage you with the right groups that are available, insurance companies, advocating with insurance companies, looking at the various programs that the county is setting up as mutual aid with partnerships with the state legislators, the federal legislators, and the surrounding agencies as well that will be working with them. We are going to be engaged all the time as senior staff to the board with any issues that sort of get stymied or got hung up. We will basically look at them and do the best effort to address anything that anybody needs.
So let me just start off. As Commissioner Glenn mentioned, this is a marathon, and we want to make sure that we do it right. I mean, we're here to serve you, and that's what we're going to do. So once you get through your intake process, if you have a specific request, and let's take an example. I have no insurance. My home needs to be removed from the property. I need help. Okay? At that point, if you look at the chart, it'll be referred to the appropriate committee. That committee will contact the volunteer coordinator and say, here's what needs to happen. This person's home needs to be removed from the property. Okay? The volunteer coordinator will contact VOAD, United Way, Red Cross, whoever they need to contact, and have those folks get in touch with the resident, get in touch with you. And you guys can work out how that works. Okay? Now, if there's no money, and I want to talk about the finances, if there's no money and it has to come from those donations, then that request gets sent back to the committee and gets sent to the finance committee so that you guys can say, do we have the money? Do we not have the money? Do we have the donations? Do we not have the donations? Once that's done, and then we go through and we make that happen. We want to keep it that way. Here's the deal. We need to track the request. Black Forest is a unique community. You've got wells, right? You've got power, and it sounds like you've got some comm issues that we need to look at. It's not a community built within, like, all cement. You've got dirt roads. So we're a special community, and it's going to take a little bit more to probably get some of these things done. So we need to address those appropriately. And you're right, General, the forest is important. So we need to make sure that we look at that as well. Now, I want you to keep something in mind. This is fluid. If this doesn't work, we're going to fix it. It's not set in stone. Does that make sense? It's the same thing with the committees. If they aren't working, that's a living document. If it doesn't work, we're going to look at that and give it a critical eye and say, you know what, this isn't working. We need to go back and fix this. And your input's important to us. The reason why we have so many checks and balances is we want to make sure that you get served. We don't want anything to fall through the crack. If you ask for something, we want folks involved, we want it tracked, and we want to make sure that you get what you need. Any questions? Now, one other thing, let me just say this, a disclaimer. There are some things that we may be asked to do that have to have board action, Board of County Commissioner approval. So understand that when it comes back to the policy group, and you'll see the policy group, once it comes back to them, if it is a board issue, it's probably going to delay that request a little bit. But the board is sensitive to that, and I believe they'll get on that right away. So, any questions? And General Bracken, just for you, I had posters built because I want you to be able to see it. I know how that goes. So we've got some big ones for you.
Commissioner Glenn, there's one more thing I wanted to add. Good. On communication, we have an email distribution list that we have been collecting from folks that have come into the DAC. We've sent out emails, basically test emails, and we're sending out information for services that are available. Some of the emails are bouncing back, so we're doing best effort to see if somebody put the wrong character in. But if you went to the DAC and you're not getting the emails, we will be calling you. We have an effort also with the call center to call folks back to make sure we have your email. If you're not getting it, just call us at the 444-8301. And then all you have to do is talk to the folks there, and they will take the correct information. If it doesn't pertain to you and you're talking to your neighbor or your friend, please advise them of the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Imad. And I want to just take a quick moment to agree with Jim and expand on what he just said to the group. We've been working with this every single day, trying to put together a good structure. It is fluid. And if you all see that you think we're missing something, you think something need to be, I already see something that I think ought to move into a different committee possibly. We'll talk about that. Let's work that out. All of you here, some of you have already been pegged as a chair of one of the subcommittees. You're going to go out and populate your subcommittee. And the others, you need to tell us where you feel that you need to serve on this steering committee. That said, we need to reach out to everyone. I've already received some that I'll share this morning with people who want to volunteer. We want to make this work efficiently, make sure nobody falls through the cracks. I don't want to have a flow chart make you think this is getting bureaucratic. We're just trying to organize so that we meet all of the demands, because there are so many different aspects to this recovery. So this is a work in progress. This is what we're all sitting around the table to do, is to organize this thing. And as Jim said, we're gonna work with this and be flexible. We'll be nimble with this. As Commissioner Glenn also stated, though, we want to stay in our lane. We want to not be redundant. I can absolutely see two subcommittees meeting together and working together because something fits. we're going to keep working this out, and we need everyone's impact, or input. That's why all of you are around the table.
Thank you. And that's a good point, because when we start scheduling public meetings for subcommittees, and it's very important when the subcommittees, when they want to have a meeting, that they need to coordinate that with us so that we can send out the appropriate notice, because these are all open meetings, and we can also send out an email through our network so that people that are interested in that topic, they can come participate in that. But logically, you know, if there are some areas that overlap subcommittees, and if we can co-locate that and save you from having to go to multiple meetings you know, during the week, we're going to try to do that. We want to make some common sense decisions here. So just remember that. Commissioner Lathan already mentioned the one meeting that we have planned for Friday. We will send out a public notice on that. We will also send out an email notice on that particular meeting. And other than that, if there aren't any other questions, this is now the portion of the meeting where we would turn it over to the public to address any issues. But there's one more here.
Thank you. The actual assignment of committee members, subcommittee members, are we going to go over that? Or?
Talk about where we want to be.
It's, when you say so, as far as within our group, who wants to be there, or it's really up to the individuals here. If there's an area that you want to gravitate to, then that is up to you. Again, make sure you have a chair, and then it's up to the chair's discretion as far as recruiting other members, whether that's citizen volunteers or even members within their own existing steering committee. Go ahead, Judy.
For the record, Judy Von Olefeld. I just wanted to make a comment or two here. I know we're focused, and properly so, on the debris removal and the permitting and all of that stuff. But I wanted to say a little word about the landscape. We basically have three categories of trees: those that are blackened and obviously dead, those that are scorched, some of which may survive, but we won't really know until next year, and then the rest of the forest that didn't burn, which I think should be a very high priority to continue the mitigation, particularly along the evacuation routes and under power lines. But I think one of the reasons this fire was so bad was that, you know, we're going to spend millions and millions and millions of trying to put this place back together, and we have spent very little public money or public assistance money in mitigation. And I think that's something maybe our congressional people can help with to bring that in. I think I spoke with Greg Langer this morning at NRCS, and he and I are both very concerned about the many operators that are coming in here to cut trees on private lands with heavy equipment, which will not only disturb the soil and damage plants that are fire adapted and will recover, but excuse me, but also creates, if they leave chips there, an even worse carbon-nitrogen ratio for anything to grow. And so we'll talk about that more at Amy's meeting, but I wanted to bring that up. Len Langford and myself, in conjunction with the State Forest Service and NRCS, are developing best management practices for forest recovery, and we're going to get that together as quickly as we can.
Okay. Oh, did you have one more? Okay.
I just have one more comment. I wanted to just commend Commissioner Glenn for taking this responsibility so seriously and moving ahead very rapidly, since it's his commissioner district mostly that burned, and the co-chair, Commissioner Lathan, because this also sits in her commissioner district. And I wanted to thank both of you for moving forward, since it's in your commissioner districts, and dealing with the issues and supporting your constituents and allowing us to come alongside and be partners in that, as well as some of our other partners that are here, Red Cross, Salvation Army, everybody and our military that's helped out so much. So you're going to continue to be partners. You're in this with us through the long haul.
I'd like to add a comment about mitigation. We understand that the governor is forming a committee or something to come and investigate mitigation efforts within El Paso County. I don't know whether it's a rumor or what, but we understand that he's formed a committee and they're coming down in the forest because some of the homeowners in the forest have complained that mitigation doesn't work. And I can guarantee you that mitigation does work. I've driven through that area up there 2 or 3 times with the chief and went around and saw houses that had dog hair pines and gambling oak touching the house, and the house was gone. Right next to it was a house that mitigated, and the house survived. So mitigation does work, and we need to reinforce that with the governor's office, that is investment well spent. And one of the things I think that we need to do in terms of mitigation is we need to clear the right-of-ways of every road in Black Forest. You know, we've tolerated topping of trees and stuff like that, but it affects evacuation routes and also creates a good fire break. So from end of right-of-way to end of right-of-way on the other side of the road, we need to just take it out there and clean it out and keep it cleaned out. And we need to have the power companies and the telephone companies do that. And then the high interstate transmission lines as well. And, you know, one other comment I'll make, and I'll shut up. And, you know, CenturyLink has really got a bad rep in this area right now. You call one of their 800 numbers and you get a machine and says, you know, you can expect service return on the 17th of August of 2016. You know, and I talked to him. It took me 45 minutes to get to him this morning. I finally talked to a real person. And this lady, she called very apologetically. She called me back, and I don't know who you talked to, Commissioner Clark, but there are not many happy campers up there in the forest right now. No, if they got transmission line problems, then they need to tell the people and come up front with them. This lady is going to come. She called me just as I was walking in the thing, and she's going to meet with us. Okay. But we've got to get on top of that.
Okay. One last comment before I completely lose control and turn it over to public comment. As far as the subcommittees, we really need your feedback as far as where you want to meet, because again, we want to satisfy our open meetings requirements. We want to ensure that we have the ability to tape these particular sessions. So work with us as far as when you're scheduling your meetings so that we can get them noticed, so that we can ensure that we have a way of recording the minutes, because again, our goal is to be very open and transparent. And if people aren't able to attend the meetings, we want to create a way for them to be able to have access to the material that was represented at that particular subcommittee. So look forward to working with you on that. So our meetings? Yes, we're going to do everything we can to post them, plus send out notices, plus sending out through the network. Yeah, and the minutes too. Yes.
One more comment. I noticed that the Colorado Springs Business Alliance stood up a fund as well within the, you know, while the fire was still burning. Is that, again, Peggy, would that be with you for small business, supporting small business impacted? Right. So is that you or the
small business, we can certainly look at that.
Or should we connect them with the fund?
It might be a co-thing for funding / business.
Funding and recovery, okay.
Right. Okay, well, Commissioner Littleton has volunteered to be our mic runner, so if there are any questions, please raise your hand.
My question is, can a lot of these meetings be held in the Black Forest? Because it's a long way for us to come down here. And if this is for the residents of Black Forest, you've got to let us know that, hey, you do care about us, and therefore we're going to meet in Black Forest so more people can come to your meetings and so forth. And my last note is I'd like to serve on your committee.
Well, we're going to do our best. I have to work with our IT and public communications department because we have certain requirements that we want to satisfy with open meetings and making sure that they can be recorded. But we will work and do our very best to have meetings as close to the residents as possible. So we'll take that as an action to work on that. But until then, you know, we're planning on having meetings here because we want to also be able to provide a forum for people to be able to sit and comfortably attend the meeting. So again, I understand and agree with what you're saying.
And I would just add to that, the Friday evening meeting, you know, we talked about this specifically. It's happening so fast, and there are requirements. We just are under the law in terms of sunshine law and things that we have to do for recording. So it was just, with all of our staff occupied at the DAC and doing so much, it was just simple for us to go ahead and do this. Now, that doesn't mean it's simple for everybody to get all the way down here. So Friday's meeting, we did go ahead and decide to be here. We have a lot of seating, over 300 seats. We imagine it will be heavily attended. We have all of the the AV equipment that we need, but we are working on getting out there closer. That's why we set up the new DAC at the Classical Academy. We do have some connectivity issues in Black Forest. Obviously, you do too. So we're dealing with some of that. We're going to get closer as much as we possibly can.
Yeah, Vince Montino, President of the Homeowner Association, Black Forest, and I got to agree with this lady. Whether it's inconvenient for 10 people to go to the Black Forest versus inconvenient for a couple thousand people to come in here, the seating arrangement doesn't make much difference. We'll sit on the ground if we have to. But the thing is that I think you're relying too much on the computers and internet to contact these people when probably half of them have no access to the internet right now. I'm copying things out on my computer and distributing people to get this information. So I think you need some type of a news media coordinator committee that makes sure that the local news media, television and radio gets these announcements for these meetings out. And if we're here to help the people, then we need to go to the people, not have people come down here. I think that's just really important to do that. And the next thing is it's not really about the people, but the post office in Briargate needs a lot of help. They're really screwing up. Mail's getting lost. They're not staffed heavy enough to do this. They say the mail's going to be forward, and it's not getting done. So, you know, we can't do anything about it. And it seems the higher you go on a government agency, the less the service is. And when you get to federal government, the post office is really lacking. So maybe one of the offices can. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, sir. And just, and I'm glad that you made the comments with regard to the media picking this up. Trust me, we're a little frustrated with our public information office as far as being able to make sure that it gets into the newspapers and that gets picked up by the local broadcast. So there's a foot stomper for our media people that are in the audience. We need some assistance with this because we can use all forms. For example, this meeting today wasn't even in the Gazette paper. So that's something that we need to really. It's a partnership. You know, we can put the information out, we can send out the notice, but we also need the media to cooperate and pick up the story. So please, when you're giving those comments, it would be nice on the other end if you could say, hey, make sure that if there's a meeting out there that you guys broadcast it, put it on your scroll. That's very helpful for us. We can control a lot of things, but we can't control them. But I'm very sensitive to that.
Hi, my name is Master Sergeant Daniel Johnson. I am a mobilized reservist, so that puts myself and one of my other soldiers that is up here that has had a total loss with a limited amount of time that we can be up here and have to go back to our place of duty. With this being a military community, I imagine that there are also other reservists out there that are in the same boat as we are. And my question is there any kind of expedition for those properties so that we can go back to our place of duty in any kind of timely manner? Because, like I said, eventually our time will run out where we have to go back and serve the country. So.
Well, sir, we definitely want to make sure that we get your information so that we can talk about that. That might be something where we end up having to create a rapid response committee to deal with those particular issues. But want to make sure that we get that through our intake process and work that particular issue and have a committee discussion about that. So whoever's taking action out there and taking notes from staff, if you could make sure that we contact this gentleman, please.
On the eastern edge of Black Forest, and I'd like to make a couple of comments. I actually, they mentioned Black Hills Energy, but I spoke this morning with Mountain View Electric, and they're the people that do get our power to us in all of that area. And I would like people to know, too, that Mountain View does have an office right there in Falcon, and I know they'll be real responsive to everybody. And my second comment / information item, Falcon D49 that has, they're 15 minutes from Black Forest. I believe they have A, the room, B, the AV equipment, etc., to hold meetings at Falcon, and I have had communication with their people, their Falcon people, and they have offered. So I think that might be a good solution.
Good morning. I'm Jim Davis. I was in the firestorm on Shoup, and my questions are, especially to Amy and Eddie, about the debris and ash out. As you said, there's a lot of church support. The Baptist Relief have been to my property. They've staked it out. They want to come there, and they've offered to do ash out. But they are saying that I have to have a dumpster. I don't even know how about going about it, getting a dumpster. And then somebody said, oh, by the way, the commissioners are trying to decide where they're going to be dumping. Can we help?
Absolutely, and this is why we're having that meeting, and I'll let them jump in, but we want to make sure that we flow that through our intake process so that we can properly screen that and provide that answer to you. So we want to make sure that we get that information.
We actually are, we have some answers on that. I don't see Kathy. Is Kathy here today? Do you see her? Okay, Waste Connections and Waste Management, they're the two landfills, and they dictate how things have to be rolled. And Jim, we're just pulling this together for the meeting, so I don't want to say something that's not right. You can remove debris. Dennis had an email as well, and I know he had another meeting. We're going to get this to you. So before you leave, I'm going to, Mr. Davis, I'm going to get your contact information. We're going to get this out. That's part of the meeting on Friday. There are some requirements that you have to, wrap it, that you have to wet it, different requirements, but they are accepting a large amount of debris, and I don't believe that it is required to be in a dumpster. So I'm going to get that confirmed for you because we're working with them as we speak to try to get those kinds of things resolved. Some of that is defined by state statute, and some of it we're trying to push through to accept more lenient debris. So we're working on that. I'll get that to you.
Yeah, I'd like to add one thing, Commissioner Latham, on the thing. One of the problems that the Baptist Convention is facing is, and I know you're working this, and I think it's very important, but we need to streamline that permit process. And, I mean, I can see a permit for the foundation removal, but, to go in and have guys just scoop this stuff up, and we don't need a permit to have the debris removed from it. And you need to clarify that. Both regional development and development services need to come clear on that thing, because all the Baptist Convention guys are hitting a bunch of roadblocks on that process.
And it's not just the Baptist folks. We've got Samaritan's Purse operating. I was out there sifting with them over the weekend. There are a number of different aid agencies. And what we had to, sift everything, get the ash back in the footprint of the house. As you know, we couldn't take it off site. Bob, I don't know if you can speak to the debris removal permits, please. That would be helpful. And in the meantime, when you're coming down, Jim, did you have something to add to that?
If you go to the county health website, the county health website has the process for clearing that debris from your property, safety precautions, and also lists folks that will take the certain type of debris. So that should explain to you what action needs to be done.
You can hand it to Bob behind you.
Good morning, Bob Croft with the Regional Building Department. The permit to get a debris is called a demolition fire debris removal permit. That permit can be purchased online. Part of that when the permit is issued is notification to two entities that we're working closely with. One is the health department, so that they're aware that people are going into the process to remove the ash and the debris and the wetting and the wrapping and their requirements. The other notice goes to El Paso County Development Services so that they understand that the process is beginning, so to speak, that reconstruction is beginning. In order for that permit to become complete, there will be an inspection by the health department verifying that all the debris is removed, and also a follow inspection by the regional building department, because there's a concern once we issue a permit, it becomes a construction site, and therefore it falls under the regulations of OSHA. We want to make sure that there is a barrier around the open foundation as required by OSHA. It doesn't have to be permanent, but some of those, what you see is maybe snow fences with black post and orange webbing is around, so that there's a notice there so that people aren't endangering themselves by approaching or falling into it. And then there's a final inspection there. After that debris permit is completed, then we get to the foundation removal, which is a separate permit unto itself, but there's almost the same identical process that takes place at that time. We did a presentation to the Board of County Commissioners yesterday. We're working very hard and diligently to get our website open, and that information will be on it. And also, when you go out to the Northern Disaster Assistance Center, that we will have those handouts available that will tell people how to do that. So, are there any other questions about the demolition?
Well, I think that's a good place to start. I want to mention, we've had some folks comment that, well, the debris removal, these permits, it wasn't this hard in Waldo. We didn't have to do certain things like wrapping and wetting in various cases. There's a very significant difference here by the state standards, and some of this is dictated to us. And that is that Waldo burned into Mountain Shadows, which of course was a newer neighborhood. We know how new the homes were, and there was no asbestos present. And so the state waived a number of requirements. That is not the case in Black Forest, as we have older homes, and the state is not waiving some of those requirements. Therefore, we're trying to work with them to really streamline this. We're also, in the presentation that we heard yesterday in our work session, and that was alluded to, that we'll actually vote on next week to get things rolling. We are looking at how we address fees, how we can bundle permits, make it easy. Maybe we eliminate them all together, we suspend requirements, we allow for different things to happen, possibly burying foundations. We're looking at all of that to make this easier. And so we're going to talk about all of that on Friday. We're really trying to gather that information as quickly as we can and looking for as much flexibility as we can, given that this is a different type of situation.
As a follow-up, is there anybody from the health department here? Yes. Okay.
I saw Jill go out, but I said as soon as the question was asked, she didn't want to answer. She ran, but Jill.
Okay. Well, anyway, Commissioner Latham, I believe the procedures of wetting and wrapping were the same. In fact, we're following the same procedures. The only thing that might differ a little bit is we had some discussion about allowing the foundations to be buried. But again, that's a process that's handled and governed by the health department through their authority from the state health department. So if there's any questions about permitting or obtaining a permit, I'll be happy to answer those. Thank you.
And we have a very detailed document. And again, the one thing that I absolutely hear and recognize is that connectivity, maybe you don't have access to
Excuse
internet.
me, and you are?
I am Jill Law. I am the Public Health Director. And I apologize, I was doing business in the hall. Good morning, everyone. So a couple of things that I think are important that I believe I heard as I was listening to the conversation is, one, the questions about debris removal. I think that's something that I heard as the primary question. And again, we have a very, very detailed document. Actually, I even have hard copies with me as I speak, because I know that not everybody has access to the internet or services to where they can go and get this online. And so we actually physically have hard copies for people with step-by-step guidance. And again, I have them with me as we speak, so for people that are interested in that today, I can make this happen and get some copies ready right now. But definitely there's some very specific guidelines based on the age of the house and certain debris removal activities related to that. But we are having some ongoing dialogue, especially related to the concrete issue in terms of property owners that may want to dispose of that on their own property. Did I oversimplify? Yeah. Absolutely. I actually can do that as we speak. If you just give me your email right now, I can send it right off my system.
Okay. We have our next question up here.
Go ahead.
Hi, my name's Will. I'm with Law Foray. we have a huge volunteer base, and we want to help out in any way we can to the community. We have a lot of photographers who want to help do family portraits that were lost up at La Forêt. We're opening up our doors for that. We also have grief counseling that we'd like to provide to the community, and we'd also like to open up a community center with one of our buildings off Burgess Road. So, we'd love to work with whatever way we can. We have literally thousands of volunteers that want to do something. We have a lot of people asking, what can they do? And the second thing is, La Forêt is a pretty central point in Black Forest, and we'd be more than willing to host subcommittee meetings up there. I think that'd be a big, central place for a lot of Black Forest residents.
Thank you very much for that. We will be following up with you.
Commissioner Glenn, may I just make one,
Sure.
one statement in relationship to the gentleman that I heard about expedition of property? One organization that's come into the DAC that is absolutely has the man and woman power to help with cleanup is called Samaritan's Purse, and they are at the Disaster Assistance Center. And okay, great. I just want to point that out because, again, it is an amazing workforce that is available that can help expedite certain activities. Yes, they're called Samaritan's Purse. And they are equipped. In fact, I just got them a pallet of N95 masks to get their workforce ready. We're probably immunizing some of them as we speak right now. And they are going to look at how to prioritize these very kinds of issues related to maybe insurance versus non-insurance scenarios such as yourself. But I just wanted to point that out.
And you can get a lot of that information at the Disaster Assistance Center at the North DAC, which is at TCA, which is just right next to Pikes Peak Community College. So next question.
Wait, hold on one second. We have a comment from a board member up here.
There is a direct line for requesting either assistance or to volunteer with Samaritan's Purse and the network they're working with. That number is, pardon me, 719. Find it again. Pardon me. It's 719-623-2750. And they're working out of Mountain Springs Church, which is right at the intersection of Black Forest Road and Woodman, just south of that on Adventure Way. And but if anybody wants to volunteer for that, effort, clearing debris, anything like that, or if you have a request for them to help, it's the same number, 623-2750.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Monty Gore, Deputy County Administrator and DAC Director. If you are a volunteer and you really want to volunteer, there is a VOAD desk at the DAC. The VOAD are coordinating all the volunteers, including Samaritan's Purse, the Southern Baptists, Hope Restored. All of them there are working through the VOAD. And VOAD is also working in conjunction with helpcoloradonow.com. That is the central.org. Ooh. Thank you. My mistake. But please funnel your requests through there. If you want to go to the DAC, VOAD is sitting there, and they're working directly with all these groups. And also the other numbers are good too, but that's your central point of contact. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is John Breeze from Connaught Drive in Black Forest. I want to touch on CenturyLink one more time because of their glacial response. A lot of the seniors on my street only have your basic cell phone, and they're unlimited minutes. Their internet is based through CenturyLink, and so now they're cut off. And I'm trying to bounce around between phone calls, internet with some of us who do have data plans on our cell phones. There are a lot of residents in Black Forest who are now cut off, except for limited minutes on cell phones. Some of the stories they've told me about talking to their cell phone providers is terrible. They'll be happy to charge them more money for a brand new 2-year plan to give them more access to communication. This is not going to work. It did take a long time to get a response from CenturyLink, from 1-800 numbers, which there were many. Yeah, the August repair date is unacceptable. And because of the fiber optic infrastructure, it's not that hard to fix. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Go ahead.
I'm Scott Campbell. I'm with Tri-Lakes Chapel, which is a church and monument. We had 65 families east of Black Forest, and have been fortunate to be able to kind of help with some of the initial response, because we have people who are part of the initial response group who are part of the congregation. But one of the things that we wanted to do is offer just a time for anybody in the Black Forest who lost a home, especially those with families, to join together tonight from 6 to 9 at its Food and Family Center. I have flyers here. It's available for anyone that lost a home. We're just happy to host. That's what we're here for.
We can put those flyers at the table right back here. Raise your hand. There's a table right back here, and we'll make sure that those get up there and people can take them as they please. So, question?
My name's Chuck Litterdale, and I'm a 30-year resident of Black Forest. I host the blackforest-co.com website. I'm trying to use that as the lower level information where people can get together. I know of 2 houses that have posted that they can come over, call the number and come over and take a shower and do their laundry. At that level of information. I know that La Forêt has internet access. I'm also thinking that I'm not sure the name of this shopping center where Subway's is. They have T1, I know that, and several empty stores and offices there. Also, as a point of information, the Small Business Development Group of the SBA has set up a temporary office at the R&R Coffee. They'll be there from like 9:30 to 4 every day until they no longer have people coming in. I worked the Slash mulch site last night, and in 3 hours we took in 300 pickup loads of Slash. And it was green Slash? Well, yeah, all but I think we had 4 that were singed, burned. Yeah. The Slash mulch site will take anything up to 8 inches in diameter, cut to 6-foot lengths. And of course, any branches you've got. Judy knows how to get rid of anything larger than that, to clear your property of that. To the commissioners, I understand there's a letter in the works. The Slash mulch site makes its money off of the mulch going out at $5 a pickup load. It's all coming in and not a whole lot's going out, and so there may be a financial problem there. It wouldn't bother me at all to pay $5 a load coming in either, so something to think about. The other thing is, if you could set up maybe some 4x8 whiteboards on a couple of the corners as a way to get the information out, because people drive through various corners and there's a couple stoplights there. They could, while they're waiting for the light, read the board, phone numbers, websites, etc.
And sir, can you repeat that first contact information that you were talking about, where people could come over and you made the example of somebody needed to come take a shower, do laundry? What was that?
Oh, the website is blackforest-co.com, and there is a subpage there, fire. It's got a map. It's got the most recent PDF from the sheriff's office and a couple other links in there, and I want to get more links to the pages that you have directly, on the the lower level of information as to how to get things done.
Okay. Thank you. Any last questions? Okay, I'll bring it back up here. I appreciate the public comment, and again, we are planning on trying to do that at each meeting. As far as our next meeting, I've tentatively scheduled that for next Wednesday at July 3rd. Still, location is right here until we can confirm another location that can satisfy all of our requirements. And still at the same time, 10 o'clock, but we will firm that up and we will send that out. Hopefully our media partners will help us with that information. It'll be at 10 o'clock here, same location. And go ahead, Commissioner Lathan.
I just have a question for the committee members here. Based on everything that we've heard and the notes that I've got, I'd like input from all of you as to whether you think that we need another subcommittee. There are two things that really caught my ear. There are many things, and we put them under some other committees.
I did print them.
But what are your thoughts about the potential of a military outreach committee? Do you think that that would stand alone enough? And if so, perhaps we even put media coordination under that as well. What are your thoughts about another committee? Or do you think that those things could live under one of the other committees?
Make one comment. Actually, to bring in the military, that may come under some of the legislative support because, you know, I think through the Congressman's office as well as our folks on, you know, in the state level, there's a division of responsibility because sometimes it's National Guard, sometimes it could be federal funding, but, you know, we can look at that. As far as military volunteering, I think that would probably be better under the cleanup recovery process subcommittee.
Last comment?
Maybe for the issue that the man brought up about having limited time here because he was on service, maybe that could be on Sally's committee under the community support.
And, before we close, if I could get the VOAD representative and the United Way representative down here, I want you to meet the county's volunteer coordinator. Thank you.
Okay, well, with that said, again, I want to thank everybody for coming out, and we will stay tuned for more notices of particular meetings. Thank you very much.
What was the number for the committee? You had a phone number to contact the committee?
Come on down. We can talk to you after.